with international activities. We are in Canada now, but we're not live there yet. I just actually met my my dealer from Canada in Cincinnati the other day and gave her the material. So it's on its way to being live there. And then in the UK, we should be live this week or next. And again, it'll be the first time live there. So we're just getting started working on Australia. Got some serious hurdles there, and we've been in business for about 2 years. Women owned, Kentucky proud.
Thank you, Susan. I asked you to go first because I wanted the group here to hear what an exciting product you got. I think it's pretty fascinating. Scott, can you go next? And Scott is a board member, actually.
Sure. Thank you, Omar. My name is Scott Broughton. I am the Director of Manufacturing Engagement for the University of Louisville. Some of you know myself as the past Center Director for the Advantage Kentucky Alliance, which is our manufacturing extension partnership here in the state of Kentucky. My level of involvement with Omar and the board is bringing in the industry expertise into the board itself, more from a service aspect, operational, business development, leadership. But in my current role at U of L, there's an immense amount of capabilities and assets and programming through University of Louisville that I'm hoping to bring to you guys and have you guys bring your activities to University of Louisville. So thank you. Appreciate it, Omar.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. Kevin, you're next.
Hi, my name's Kevin Bodlin. I have a consulting firm in global affairs, PhD in international relations from Florida International. But I'm a Kentucky boy, went to Western Kentucky University, and I'm new to the World Trade Center in Kentucky. I met with Omar a few days ago. We had a good talk, and I'm interested in learning more about you all and if I can ever be of assistance in answering issues with global affairs. Thank you.
One of the exciting things about when we do things virtually like this, we get people from Shelbyville all the way to Bowling Green and other parts of the state. So we're excited about that. Will, you're next.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Will Snell. I'm an agricultural economist at the University of Kentucky. And one of the areas I work on is ag trade.
Thank you. And he's a board member. Thank you for your service as a board member. Really appreciate it. Tim, also as a board member, please.
Good morning. Tim Hughes, serve as the Senior Trade Advisor here at the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. And joining me this morning is Saxon Marvin. Saxon is an intern with us representing the Southern U.S. Trade Association. And look forward to the conversation today.
Fantastic. And you've got an event on July 13th that you might want to talk about a little later in terms of the activities, or even now if you feel like it.
Yeah, be glad to. On July 13th, we're hosting a trade seminar in Louisville. It's going to feature the programs from the Southern U.S. Trade Association, World Trade Center Kentucky, U.S. Commercial Service, Small Business Development Center, Department of Agriculture, as well as the STEP program from the Cabinet for Economic Development. And, collectively, I think all of those groups cover a lot of different resources related to trade, whether it's technical, cost share assistance, just helping to connect dots and answer questions. So, the Department of Agriculture, we administer the Kentucky Proud program, which has its own guidelines and opportunities, but then through many of our partners with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, there's a number of tools and resources available for agriculture-related exporters. And so really enjoyed this week attending the Alltech conference, and I know we got a few folks from Alltech on, but it's neat to see Kentucky firms hosting an international audience like they did this week.
Definitely, it is. It is. We're proud of that and proud of the activities that they keep doing. Dave, you're next.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me. My name's David Robeson. I worked for E.D. Bullard Company for the last 21 years and global trade, import, export, licensed customs broker, and do some work, consulting work a little bit with World Trade Center. And international is what I do. So it's what I enjoy and love doing. And thanks a lot for having me aboard. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so, there's times when I look really, really smart. It's because David has actually given me the answer.
Thanks, Omar.
Well, I appreciate it. John, you're next.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. My name is John Marnotti. I am new to working with the World Trade Center, and I work with a company right now. It's called Signal Solutions. We're a small company we work out of the Aztec building on UK campus, and we manufacture specialized rodent cages for laboratories. It's got specialized hardware and software that monitor the life vitals of the rodents, and we have customers in all over the United States and around the world. And I'm really excited to hear what we have on the agenda for today.
Thanks, John. And, a small Lexington company that's growing, and definitely a good chunk of your revenue does come from international sales. So it's good to see that.
Mhm.
Okay, so, all right. I'm going to move on. I think I got a hold of everyone that's got their camera on. I'm going to move on to the non-camera folks. Karen, you're a board member. Please introduce yourself and the company that you're with.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Trawl, and I am the Americas Region Senior Director of Production Control and Logistics for Hitachi Astemo. I work on inventory and logistics, warehousing, trade compliance, and government relations. Sorry, I do not have my camera on. I've been on calls with Japan since 5 a.m. about semiconductors, as I'm sure you can imagine. So a little challenging in our world right now. So looking forward to joining today and hearing from everyone.
Thank you, Karen. And, myself, Laura, and Alan have all the answers when it comes to semiconductors today. I'm just kidding. No.
Send them our way. Whatever you got, send them our way. Yep.
All right. Anthony?
Hey guys, Anthony Gann. I'm our Global Director of Operations Planning at Alltech. Goodness, I've had the pleasure of working with you guys for years now. We appreciate the partnerships that we've had between our organizations, and yeah, thanks for hosting the event today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on board. Another board member, another Alltech person, Dan Haney.
Hey, good morning, Omar and everyone. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from our superstars, Laura, this morning and Colton. It was great to see Tim this past week at our conference. Really appreciate his support, and yeah, very excited. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Alltech. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Adam, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Adam Chisholm. I'm the traffic manager with Revishelf. We manufacture cabinet parts, and I manage all the outbound transportation, primarily domestically. This is my first trade chat, and I'm looking to learn more about international trade.
Excellent. There's a gentleman by the name of Edis. You're a guest. Can you introduce yourself?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So my name is Edis. I am a Louisville resident, a U of L alumnus, and right now I'm an owner-operator truck driver. I'm leased onto a company that's based in Louisville, Mercer Transportation, and I'm actually on the road right now as we're speaking, doing a little pickup here in Western Kentucky. Taking it back to Shepherdsville. But this is maybe my second trade chat that I've done so far, second or third. And I don't have. I'm not involved in international trade in really any capacity, but I really do consider myself a student of international trade, and so I'm just here to see if I can pick up any gems um, that has anything to do with international trade. Um, then I do see myself perhaps in the future getting involved. So that's just a little bit from me.
Thank you, appreciate it. And it's good to have someone who is from the field with us on the call and on in the field, if you will. So one of the things that I want to get going from the get-go is I'm really excited about the diverse audience that we've got with this trade chat. It shows that there's a huge interest out there on the things that we're going to be talking about, and you know, we've got small companies that are just starting to export. We've got medium-sized companies that have been involved in exporting for a number of years, and not just exporting but also importing. And then we've got large firms that have been involved in international trade. My name is Omar Ayash. I am the president of the World Trade Center here in Kentucky. This is the second time that I am working for the World Trade Center in Kentucky. The first time was from 95 to 2001, and just recently joined about 5 months ago after having lived overseas for the last 12 and a half years. And for the board members, I'm sorry that you're going to hear this again, but one of the things that I've noticed about international trade in the state of Kentucky is when I was knocking on the doors of companies in the mid 90s to late 90s, there was definitely companies that were doing international trade, but it wasn't as common. Probably most of the work that we used to do with the World Trade Center and the cabinet and the Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Commerce was a lot of it was focused on exporting 101, importing 101. Fast forward to today, I am extremely impressed on how the market has matured and how we have really rising stars in our company portfolios that actually have, in my opinion, a World Trade Center within their organizations. Valvoline is a perfect example of that. Altec is a perfect example of that. GE Appliances is a perfect example of that. And so the market for international trade in the state of Kentucky has really matured. And not only do we have you know, one employee that's knocking on doors and that's typically doing sales, but we also have export compliance individuals. We also have individuals that are processing export orders, looking at supply chain, looking at logistics, and a number of different activities. But in the last, you know, 4 to 5 months, there's been a lot of discussion focused on supply chain issues and labor issue and things of that nature. And many of us are very aware of where we stand today. There is a semiconductor and raw material shortage. It will continue throughout this year. Actually, 77% of companies are experiencing a year-over-year supply disruption as a direct result of the pandemic and beyond that. I mean, most recently, the wars and what have you. So you're going to have many of the products out there that are not going to be available at capacity, and I'm always hearing from our importers and exporters that there are challenges with getting certain products across the sea, and there are challenges of getting, you know, products manufactured and things of that nature. So that's one of the difficulties out there. Another difficulty that we've seen most recently is the record high gas prices. And these are the challenges that exist today, and a lot of the carriers have been focused on them. Of course, there's also a labor shortage, and it continues to widen, and that is probably as a result of our aging population, as a result of the shifts that are happening within the different work communities. About 4.5 million employees quit their jobs in March 2020. So these are some of the key direct changes that are happening as a result of that. Now, the good news is that we, as a country, are constantly recognizing some of these changes. And there was actually, in June of last year, a White House report that went out that was focused on building resilient supply chain, revitalizing American manufacturing, and fostering broad-based growth. And I already started having conversations as a result of this report with key people here on the panel. I spoke actually with Laura and Alan about that as our last international trade certification. David was also part of that conversation. And we as people involved in international trade are constantly looking at how can we work together to come up with solutions that are related to supply chain issues, that are related to revitalizing our production facilities, that are related to improving our supply chain labor issues and things of that nature. And in this trade chat, yes, Laura and Alan are going to be the stars of this conversation. We'll get to them here in a minute. But we, as the 15 of us, 16 of us on this conversation, are very much part of the trade chat, and feel free to chime in where it's appropriate and where you feel comfortable, whether it's raising questions to the audience or raising questions to the speakers. So let me get started here. Sorry for the long-winded introduction, but I thought I needed to set the stage. Alan, please introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. Alan Black. I am the regulatory affairs leader for Valvoline. So I'm involved in a lot of different regulatory issues, primarily focused around global trade. My team focuses on moving product in and out of countries around the world, and then also the product regulatory aspects of it, which include product stewardship, labeling, SDSs, and those items as well. And prior to joining Valvoline a little over 5 years ago, I was with FedEx for 35 years or so, and that's where I met Karen. I actually worked with her on some of the issues moving product into the U.S. So been in the global trade or in the international arena for probably 30 years now. So thanks, Omar. And I think just to set the stage, the one thing that I was thinking about yesterday as I was preparing my mind at what I was going to speak a little bit about, but if you look back going pre-pandemic, we were rolling along and expanding into new countries, and our world was pretty much what it always been. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits. My last trip was to Serbia to meet some new staff on my team. Then February of 2019, and boy, things changed in the next few weeks after that. But if you might even go a little bit pre-pandemic, and the world has been kind of in the global arena, it's been kind of a mess since the 2018, 2019, when the tariffs started shifting over in China. And we as global trade professionals have really been the stars of our companies. I can tell you at Valvoline, when those tariffs hit and we were going to have 25% plus tariffs on our imports into China, we shifted production from the U.S. to China, to Europe, and avoided the tariffs. And so we made a lot of quick moves. Most of those occurred within 30 to 90 days of the tariffs announcements. And then that we kind of got going again, and things were fairly smooth. And then other things started to come in with COVID and et cetera. So the shutdowns, all of that, it just seems like it's been a huge amount of change. And in my world, if you add to that and other people, depending on the products you have, there's been a constant increase in regulatory activity around products around the world for the last 3-4 years. And it's like unlike anything we've ever seen. Within Asia Pacific, there's a lot of new regulations around labeling, around the types of components or substances that you can import. And so it's really been one of those things where it highlights the quality of the employees that work on my team and with me to carry that out of Valvoline. And I'll tell you, as you're looking, that's probably the hardest part of our job, is trying to find the right talent. And once you get them, keeping them on your team and keeping your team fully staffed. And when I took over the team 5 years ago, a lot of people were new, but what we've done is had quite a bit of turnover. But in doing that, we made everyone much more multifaceted, where they can handle lots of different types of issues, and really focused on the quality of the individuals and also the experiences we gave them to increase their breadth of how they would handle things. And that allows me to sleep at night. I mean, I've got Asia running, and I know I've got two solid people over there that are handling all the issues. And when we talk from time to time in my evening or their morning, or vice versa, that rolls in. And then, as I think Karen said, she'd been on calls earlier this morning. But then I roll into Europe, and then kind of the afternoons I spend with my USA team. And so it's just it's really been one of those past few years where it's just a blur, and it's just, we've made a lot of good decisions and continue to be able to take on new business and market share. So when you just add the high a lot of the problems that have come along with the supply chain, that's just added to all the other things we were already dealing with. But it has shown the versatility and the need for solid trade compliance individuals that can help with creative solutions to help ship raw materials to certain places, finding raw materials to continue to produce, sometimes finding finished goods that are already made that you can substitute. So I think, the one thing I always end with the groups that I speak to at Valvoline is the only thing constant in our world is change. So I'll turn it back over. I think Laura we lost her for a minute there. So, yeah, I think every one of you guys know that and feel that. So Laura, I guess, anything you want to add in now in your world?
Yes. Please introduce yourself, Laura, and what do you do at Alltech? You're on mute.
She's frozen. There she goes.
Hi, good morning. I hope you can hear me okay. We're getting some thunderstorms where I'm at, so the internet can sometimes be a little rough.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, my name is Laura Vanderheiden. I work at Alltech as an international logistics specialist. I've been at Alltech for about 5 years now, and through that time, I've been lucky enough to be in different departments where I've really learned different values and core places within the company. And so it's really kind of led me to where I'm at now on the international team, working with logistics and with purchasing, our customer service team, and our companies abroad. Alltech itself is in about 120 countries, so I feel very lucky to get to work with those moving forward and working with our customers. So that's kind of a quick snapshot behind me. This is my first trade chat, so I'm very excited to be a part of these moving forward.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. So, Alan, let's step back also for a minute and ask you about Valvoline. How many countries are you guys in? Where are you producing? I know that you're, a Lexington company, and there's still a lot of people that don't understand that you are headquartered in Lexington. When I talk about Valvoline, they still get surprised about that. So share the story with us, if you don't mind.
So Valvoline is an old company. We pride ourselves as being the original motor oil, over 150 years old. We are headquartered in Lexington and have a beautiful campus. If you have not been to our campus, I would urge you to stop by. It looks almost to me like a Star Wars type thing. It's got 2 wings, and just we opened it in 2017, and it's just a beautiful place. Makes you really proud to go to work there. But we are in over 140 countries, expanding in the Middle East and Africa. That's our expansion area, which is really kind of tricky. From a global trade side, those are some pretty scary countries that you have to take some extra measures sometimes to make sure that your products are getting in the hands of the right people. But we are in 140 countries. We do produce in quite a few locations in the U.S. I won't name them all, but our two largest are in Houston, Texas at Deer Park, and we export most of our products out of that region in the Houston port. We also produce in Cincinnati. So while we are a Lexington company and in Kentucky is our headquarters, we don't actually produce in Kentucky. But we do have our R&D lab right next to our building here in Lexington. And we also have an engine lab. We are one of the only automakers that actually has their own engine lab, and we do testing on actual vehicles. That's in Ashland, Kentucky. Outside of the U.S., our main production points are Dordrecht, Netherlands, just south of Rotterdam. We acquired a plant 3 years ago in Kruševac, Serbia. So that's a new point for us. We also just built a plant in Zhangjiagang, China, just about 100 miles from Shanghai. That came online during COVID. I've never seen it. My team did all the work remotely, electronically, up at night, getting things accomplished. We did a lot of the training for the teams here in the U.S., and so that was an interesting twist. And then we also operate using some different tollers. We do have some joint ventures, one in India, Ecuador, and Argentina. So it's a pretty small network in general, but we're all over the world and we're expanding, and that creates new learning and new opportunities for our team.
Thank you, Alan. So Laura, if you don't mind sharing the history of Alltech and telling us about, the founder, and we've already discussed a little bit about the one conference that you guys just hosted. So, just give us that brief overview.
Yes, so Alltech was started in 1980 by Dr. Pierce Lyons, originally from Ireland. He was the definition of a true entrepreneur and a storyteller, and he just had this passion and this vision within him. And those who are lucky enough to maybe have met him on the call, you would understand that. But he actually was a scientist, and so he came to Kentucky through the University of Kentucky. He was doing a research study, and that's where he, through that, decided to he built Alltech. And so we're founded on yeast, is what we say. And so his research, he branched out. He started Alltech with $10,000, and now we've become the incredible company that we are. We've grown. Our global headquarters is still based here in Nicholasville, Kentucky, which has been great. But our European headquarters is back in Ireland, which honors his home country. And really over the years, we've just expanded and we've grown so quickly and so fast. But we still really have that entrepreneurial spirit at heart, which has been really great. So everybody within the company is encouraged to kind of have their moonshot ideas, is what we call it. And if you have an idea, speak up, go for it. Dr. Lyons always said, don't get it right, get it going. And I think especially in today's world, that is something that is so relevant because with the circumstances that we're in, sometimes we don't always know how we're going to get there, but we just need to get it going, and we need to, take that step and get it figured out as we go. So he truly was a visionary. I was lucky enough to get to meet him and spend some time with him. And then now his son, Dr. Mark Lyons, is leading the company and is doing a fantastic job. So the one conference, it's really just a great highlight. It actually started as a research symposium for internal staff, I think back in the late 80s, early 90s. But since then, it's grown where we bring our customers, we bring our vendors, we bring people from the local community, anybody who really wants to come. And we now are offering business sessions. And so hopefully we can start growing and talking more about trade and logistics in those business sessions, as I know there will be more interest in that moving forward.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. So let me start by, there's a thought that's been roaming through my head, and that is, you hear this very often in forums that we get involved in as international trade practitioners, and that is exporting is really a privilege. And, that the government actually has the control over that privilege. And so, Alan, you alluded to that by talking about all these trade regulations and all these tariffs and compliance issues that you're constantly having a focus on that. So if you don't mind taking us through that thought, what does it mean that exporting is a privilege to companies? And what does it mean to have to comply? And why is it important to be involved in that situation?
Well, as I broke into global trade and started to work on that, my boss was a former customs officer, and so he drilled that into my head quite a bit that we don't have to allow your products to leave the country. And so the other key point that he always made was that if you do your export correctly, the importing will take care of itself. And so, getting your information correct, getting your HS classifications or Schedule Bs correct, working around that, doing your due diligence on the front end, if you're exporting the product, really getting to know what's required. Is it licensable? What's the ECCN if it is, if it's not? And, as I started really getting involved in the regulatory affairs side of the house, one of the things I learned with a lot of time in DC was that, this exporting is actually more complicated. Some people think exporting is very easy, but it's more than a privilege. It's really, you've got to know what it takes to get a product to possibly 220 countries around the world. And you got one country's origin regulations, but you've got to know what the other side of the equation is. And doing it right, making sure that you're doing business with the parties that you're supposed to be doing, watching out for red flags. Luckily, at the international trade facilitation training we just had, I got to do the export compliance training, and there's some basic principles that most solid companies follow, and that's just making sure that the information's correct and accurate on the front end, making sure that you have a good due diligence and screening program, making sure that your customer service / order global trade professionals that are exporting the products are well trained and understand that, because for me as a regulatory affairs team or working on global trade, they're the eyes and the ears of what's going on out there. So it is a privilege. If you don't do it correctly, you will see how quickly that privilege goes away and how quickly you have your name up in lights by the U.S. government. But it also plays out into other countries as well. So again, the same guiding principles tend to work very well, but it takes a lot of work on the front end before you start day one of exporting. You really need to do the homework. If you don't, you're going to spend a lot more time trying to clean up the mess. And at FedEx, they always drilled in the 110-100 rule, which basically, if you get it right the first time, you only touch that export one time. But you make a mistake, now your value of the amount of time it takes is tenfold. And then if it's really a mess, it goes to 100-fold. So, I was always drilled in with it is a privilege and get it right. And if you do that, then the privilege really is not something you really worry about. It happens like clockwork for you. But the new world we're in, there are challenges. That's not to say every export goes off without a hitch, but we try to limit those to minor bumps in the road.
Thanks, Alan. Laura, do you want to comment on that? Do you have anything to add in that particular area?
Yeah, something I would just add is, at Alltech, we're very lucky. We have a very great quality assurance team, and then we have a fantastic regulatory team. And I think with that, it's so important to know who kind of your exports are in those certain areas, especially sometimes with internal teams and communication. It's just, I would say, just reiterate the point of if you have an issue, this is who you go to, or if you have a question, this is your contact, because we need to make sure we're utilizing that talent and that wealth of information in our internal people.
Yeah, and for me, it's extremely important for us to have these kinds of conversations here, to have the international trade certification trainings, to have the receptions, the networking events, whatever it is, because when we're one community, the international trade community is one community, and this is where we constantly work with each other and help each other, because how can you have the answers to 220 countries? How can you figure out the regulation associated with that? How can you deal with that when there's a constant change happening in terms of tariffs, duties, harmonized tariff, the whole thing? And if anyone, tells you that they've got the encyclopedia for exporting or importing, or they know it all, more power to them. David, would you like to add a few comments associated with that? David, can you hear me?
Trying to get his desk up again.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to today's topic. When we were working in the International Trade Certification Program a few weeks back, we had really gotten to a point in the afternoon where we started talking about some key issues that are happening with supply chain, some key issues that are happening with labor and things of that nature. And infrastructure was very much part of that discussion. So Laura, you and your group came up with some innovative ideas in terms of how can we move the country forward, not just Alltech, but the country in general, in terms of some of the challenges that we're having when it comes to supply chain, labor, and things of that nature. And I didn't call on all the groups to come and present today, but I did want to call on some groups to share their experience. And feel free, Laura, to share your problem statement and then your solution going forward.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I know when we did our meeting, I put together a quick little PowerPoint. So if you guys can see my screen, I'll just go ahead and present that.
I don't see it yet.
Oh.
I see your name, but not your screen.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. I can go on, and if it pops up, that's great. But if not, so really, in our group, we were really thinking about where we are in today's world and kind of our main supply chain vulnerabilities. And we kind of narrowed it down to three issues that we're really seeing across all sectors, across all companies. And that's port and cargo container backup, specifically at U.S. ports, buyer and seller visibility on container status. I know we're really having a hard time getting accurate communication and information from the ports, from the steamliners. And so without good communication, we're kind of sitting there waiting to know what's going on with our cargo and with our shipments. So that's been a really big challenge. And then also really the container chassis and driver shortage. That's a huge challenge as well. That's really creating some of these backups. So kind of the areas where we would like to see improvement when we look at three goals of how hopefully this could get fixed. We would love to see container real-time tracking. We would love to see increased transportation options and availability. I know right now there's a lot of restrictions with what drivers we can use at the ports. So maybe if we open that up and we can get some more talent and some more insights there, that could help alleviate some of the stress. And then also, obviously, a huge goal would be to decrease the days that containers are spending at the port, because right now we are just seeing days and numbers that we've never seen before, which is obviously creating a huge challenge. So really how we would get there, and I know these will seem kind of like maybe moonshot ideas or not possible, but if there was a way where we could get chips or GPS chips and tracking in the containers, that would really alleviate a lot of stress. It would really open the doors to real-time data, real-time tracking. It wouldn't necessarily solve all the problems, but at least we would know that we're getting accurate information because we can actually see where the containers are, what's happening. With this, we would also be able then to collect more data. We would be able to accurately see what containers are coming into what ports, what is the delay time, how long are they sitting. We would be able to utilize so much more data and really start to then place analytics and place solutions from that data by just having some chips in the containers. Another thing would be to incentivize truck companies and drivers to work with the ports. If we could open that up, if we could increase pay to the drivers. I know we were saying Walmart just did that at that time about a month ago when our meeting was. Walmart had just come out with their raise in salary to truck drivers. So even if the ports could do something like that to incentivize drivers to want to drive for them and to want to help with this crisis that we're currently facing. And then kind of the third point, going back to what the GPS chips would allow, it would really allow us to further track the goods and products that are coming into the country and leaving it. With that data set, then we could really start to further break down and look exactly at, I mean, and I know we're supposed to see that anyways, but then we could really, again, with all that data in one place, on one site, we could really start using analytics, BI tools, and further grow our knowledge and skill set, and hopefully alleviate some of the pain from this ever happening again in the future. So I know those are kind of big shot ideas, but that's something that our team really looked at, and we think could really help the industry if that would ever be possible.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. It's really exciting to hear some of these things. And I was talking to a college professor about a couple of months ago, and you know, the challenge that might exist in port management is that you know, the technology was not being let in, and there are issues that are associated with that. And here you are presenting, you know, we're at a time where, you know, data is very much part of the process. Data is very much driven by a lot of the activities, and the more data that we can have, and I think as a country, having that hub of data really can improve some of the supply chain issues and things of that nature. Hi, Colton. We'll get to you in a minute. Good to see you. Yeah. Can you hear me, Colton? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm having a little technical difficulties this morning. Sorry.
Not at all, not at all. Good to see you. Good to see you. So anyhow, Alan, what I want to put in front of you is the idea of infrastructure. And you and I had probably, and the group had a good discussion around infrastructure and port management and technology associated with that. And you had some really unique insight that I share with you, particularly, you know, the country that I lived in right before here, about their infrastructure expansion, what have you. Why don't you give us your point of view on that?
Well, thanks, Omar. But before I do that, so Laura, I want you to know your first point is not far-fetched. There, in the express world, there is a tracking device that's almost like a cell phone for pharma products and other things that really are temperature measured and have other attributes you want to measure, that they insert in a package, and it allows the customers to follow their package all the way through and set limits. And if something goes awry, it also is a GPS tracking as well. I think the challenge, and maybe today with where things are going, it's not so much a challenge, but the challenge was always driven by cost and the lack of infrastructure and technology in the shipping companies. But, you know, along the infrastructure side, you know, the challenges, I think, if you've listened in the press lately around containers and other things, the kind of scary part of that right now is that China controls most of the container building and how the containers are out there. But if we could get the shipping lines to push forward, which in my years in global trade, the shipping lines are always the last ones to come on board. You see the air industry and the trucking industry add technology much faster than in the ocean environment. So, you know, it's not far-fetched. It's just a question of, is the industry going to push them in that direction, or are they going to come along with the industry? So I think the ability to do that in our time with technology, it's there. But you know, the challenges that I think we're facing with infrastructure just are, how can we move things quickly around? And you know, we were in pretty good shape up until about 6, 7, 8 months ago in the Port of Houston, and now we're seeing the same backlogs there that existed out on the West Coast, to the point where we've even looked at, can we truck to Miami? Can we truck to some other port to get it out of the U.S.? Because, as you said, things are just rolling day after day after day. But, you know, ports outside of the U.S., and I think, you know, that's one of the things where you see some advantages, like where Omar used to live in Dubai. They're really investing in infrastructure. And if you're going to make your way into the future, I mean, we've got to have that investment. We've got to have that investment here in the U.S. How we handle things, I think, to get things in and out of the country via the ocean terminals is quite antiquated. And, you know, if you look at the air industry as a whole, with the challenges they had after 9/11 and after certain other events, they really used technology, data, and other things to really move them forward in their ability to move things quicker and adjust to things that occur. And so, from in the world that we're in today, we're really bound and hamstrung by the infrastructure that basically is there, as well as the ocean lines and how antiquated they are at this point in time. They're just barely really bringing data on, and it's only because the custom services and other government agencies want that data. Otherwise, they would still be doing things the way they did things back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. And that's been one of the interesting things to watch over the past 20, 30 years is they're being pulled along rather than wanting to be out on the forefront and pushing, and using what's out there to help them better manage their business and even control costs.
Yeah, it's something that I think as a country, we have no shortage of money. We have no shortage of innovation. We have no shortage of talent. There's so many things that are available here in the United States in that perspective. It's just deciding to focus our attention. And to me, as a leader in international trade, sometimes I worry that we have missed the boat on certain parts of globalization. And that's why we are in this position right now. And you've got emerging markets that understand it and have invested heavily in the last 10 years, and their economies have recovered much quicker, moving in the right direction. Infrastructure is in the right place. And I as community involved in this, I urge all of us to be focused on advocating for these solutions when it comes to supply chain, these solutions when it comes to port management technology and things of that nature. Colton, over to you. Introduce yourself, your background, and tell us what you want to tell us today.
Yes, sir. So I met Omar about a month ago now. He did the World Training Certificate class that I took, and really enjoyed it. It was good for me. But I took that because I work at Alltech, and we're a global company, and I buy products from all our suppliers in other countries. So I needed a little bit more background on that. So that is my main job. I do a little bit of everything there, but my main job is supply chain at Alltech for the additive side. And Omar wanted me to speak a little bit today about we're having a trade war with the world. So there is not labor that exists for everybody. And we're at a shortage of workers right now. So I'm speaking a little bit on how we can entertain and recruit new people. We need to obtain and retain people. And I apologize because I'm going to read off some notes. But basically, not every company or industry can fit in a cookie cutter approach to how business should be run. It's an aged model, and it's adapting and ever changing. I just went to a great speaker at our one conference this week. Her name was Bernie Keogh, and she spoke on the Great Resignation and how to re-engage employees. It was mostly for white collar work, but I had some good takeaways, and thought that it could be for basically every industry. So I think companies will need to be creative and obtain and retain talent. There's just simply not enough people to fill every job with the Great Resignation, the aging population. Yeah, just not enough people are being born to pick up what the generation before us left off. It's gonna affect every industry. I mean, you see the help wanted signs all across your towns. I'm sure it's it's pretty unreal. So you got production, warehousing, uh, food, hospitality. Every single industry has been affected by this. There's got to be some changes to get creative on how you want to recruit and retain talent. And then, yes, sir.
One of the things that you mentioned when we met together was the school program. Do you want to highlight that?
Yeah. So one thing it used to happen in my high school. I went to Lexington Catholic High School locally here, and they used to let seniors and juniors off of high school to go work basically the second half of the day. I think that needs to be a bigger push. It'll give people more of an experience. They'll get to get out in the work world, try different jobs, see what they like. I think it'd be good if they could have like some sort of co-op program. I also went to University of Cincinnati. They do a great job of having a co-op program. So when you do that, you get to work and you get paid for school, and it helps because you don't have to pay back a student loan, right? So I think a work release program basically is what it is. And like if we installed that, I think it would help a lot of industries, just in hospitality, food, production. You could just whatever industry they're interested in, you just start rotating them. I think that would help a lot.
So let's, along that, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Most recently, I got connected to the University of Louisville College of Business Administration master's program in business analytics. And they bring in quite a number of international students. More than 60% of their student population is international. And it's a STEM program. And with it being a STEM program, there's an opportunity for them to have a 4-year work permit in the country, and then eventually they can get a green card and naturalize. So that's another example of a solution that I just wanted to share with you
So
all.
yeah, I think it would be great if we could start to just recruit the people internationally, because our economy is just too small for how it's grown now, and there's not enough jobs. So, or I mean, there's too many jobs. There's not enough people. But if we get the people internationally to come over here, get a work card, and start working here for a visa, then I believe that could be a solution to help fill some of those positions that are needed, and that'll definitely help. Technology is huge for that. Uh, yeah, I think if we could even recruit some foreign people to start trucking for us, I think that would be huge.
Well, at 110,000 working for Walmart, that's a pretty good opportunity that many people will choose. Okay, we've got a few minutes left here, and I know that I've got a couple of hands, and maybe some other people want to comment on these things. But what we haven't probably discussed is, as a panel, is we've got a war that's going on, the impact of that. We've got a country that's been in lockdown for a good 30 days, if not more. What is the impact on that? I'm hearing no rumors, not hearing rumors, actually. Baby formula shortage is a perfect example of the situation that we're in. Inflation is right here. Who would, any of you would like to comment on these things and their impact on our industry and our business?
Well, I think
I could lead off. It doesn't matter. Yeah, agriculture, it's huge. Natural gas, it affects every single thing across the industry, across every industry. So yeah, it's been tough. It's been tight. We've tried to try to head some prices, but we're just kind of going with it now. We're waiting to see what the next event is that's going to pop up. There's no predicting the future, but yeah, Ukraine and Russia, Alltech personally has companies in both of them. So or locations in both of them. And we just feel for the people there. We didn't want to see it happen like that, but we've been doing our best to try and mitigate all the risk and everything that comes along with it, and hedge all the prices also. Alan?
Yeah, I think that the other thing that the Russian conflict, we already had all these pressures from inflation, supply chain issues. It only added to that. And especially within our European operations, where you may be buying products and now you got to determine if they have Russian content in them, or who is the company that produced it. And it just added another layer. Most U.S. companies have either suspended or shut down operations in Russia, so that's put additional pressures on our companies. But the biggest one is just trying to make sure, with all the additional sanctions and list, uh, your company is in lockstep and doing the right things, especially for the companies here with Alltech and Valvoline. We're U.S. based companies, so our obligation is to make sure we ensure U.S. law, even though things may occur offshore and our operations there. So that's just added an additional complexity to things. And as that landscape, I guess within about a month ago, was changing almost daily. We're still seeing it some, but it is something we have had to reach out not only to our within our operations, but we've reached out to our trade partners, our customs brokers and forwarders, to make sure we're all working through this together.
All right. Let me open it up for questions or discussion. We're past our time, but we'll continue to be here if you guys don't mind for another 10 minutes if there's questions and discussion. So, please, for the individual that has raised his hand, please go ahead.
This is Edis. I did raise my hand, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to direct my question to Alan. Alan, a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. You mentioned some challenges that your company was facing in Africa. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Could you also tell us which markets you're trying to grow in within Africa? And also just how far has Valvoline, how long ago have you started your work in Africa with Valvoline, to your knowledge? And then the other question for you is, you just mentioned freight forwarders and custom brokers. How much of your international trade processes do you actually outsource? If you can maybe give us a rough estimate percentage-wise. And what I mean by that is, how much do you rely on freight forwarders and entities like that? Thank you.
Well, that's a lot of different questions, but just to kind of focus on the Africa aspects. We've been in Africa and South Africa primarily, but we're expanding beyond that. Africa has recently publicized that they are putting most of the member states within Africa will be joining a free trade agreement. That will change the landscapes as that becomes ratified. So, we're looking there. What Valvoline has done is looking to get into some other sectors other than, as you know, Valvoline, you buy lubricants and motor oils and antifreeze, and those typically go in, machinery and or cars. But we're looking to get into mining sectors, energy sectors. There are other sectors we're expanding within, and as things mature within Africa, and it becomes a more viable player out there, as you have these free trade agreements and other things. The one big challenge with Africa is finding information about that online. So you almost have to have boots on the ground or working closely with your trade partners. Omar and I had this discussion the other day about, how can we find a good resource sometime to validate things? Your distributors may tell you they need all these things, and you go out and you do the research, and you can't find that information either in Europe through a government database that they give the companies in Europe to go search for what's needed to get things in these developing countries. But I think the interesting thing is when you start to want to put product there is, what taxes, what fees are there? There's just a lot to it. And it's much harder in the developing and emerging countries within Africa than it is for me to go look at somewhere in Europe or Asia Pacific. And so Africa just offers some challenges in that area. We are looking to expand our operations, looking to invest more and get people closer to that so that we do get that information. But, we do rely, to your next question, we rely on freight forwarders and customs brokers pretty much for any import or export. Could we do some of that ourselves? Yeah, I've done it in the past. But I like the arm's length transaction of having somebody else doing that. And, I can hold them accountable as a global trade compliance person and work with them on the details. And we'll put in a program that we know that is going to be compliant by feeding them good data about our products. And with the technology that most of the customs brokers and forwarders have around the world, it's a pretty solid transaction where we don't see a lot of mistakes. We don't, and having that other set of eyes, sometimes they might catch something somebody on our team misses. So I think they're viable. I am a licensed customs broker, as well as I have one other gentleman on my staff. We could file entries, we could file export decks and start that tomorrow. But I kind of like the process that we have in place because it allows us to do oversight as opposed to trying to be divided and doing the actual work. Hopefully that answers most of your questions.
Thank you, Alan. Edis, you wanted to comment?
Yes, just thank you. I think you did cover my questions. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else would like to make any comment, discussion, point of view about what we've been talking about? Great solutions that you're implementing, challenges that you're having. Feel free. All right. I think Alan, Laura, Colton, thank you so much. If you have any departing comments that you would like to share with the group here, feel free to do it now.
Just thank you all so much for having me. It's been great, and I'm excited to kind of keep the connections and keep working with this organization.
And I'd just like to add, Omar, you're right. We are one community here in Kentucky, and earlier we were having that conversation. If anybody wants to talk or connect further, I'm sure Omar can connect us. And it's always good to talk about this stuff. This is what we live, breathe, and work on every day. And once you get into this, it's a passion. It's something that energizes you all the time. And I always tell my team and everybody here, we're solution. We're here to find solutions, not find problems. The problems are there. It's our job to find a solution or a way to get it done properly and compliantly.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, much appreciated for having me. We're all going through the same problems, every company. So I just glad that it's not only me, and it's good to know I have this support here. But yeah, thanks for having me in Alltech. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate the conversations that we've had here. We've learned a lot today, and we'll continue to learn. And I like this statement that you put, Alan, which is we're one community, and we're constantly going to work towards that one strong international trade community. And so stay tuned.